Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you are well. In this video, I'll be showing you how to make a lady's trouser. Keep on watching. I'll need my 1.5 yards of fabric, my French curve and ruler, my measuring tape, my chalk, scissors, and my long ruler. This is my waistline. Then my crotch length was 10.5, but because I'm using a waistband of 1.5 inch, I've decided to take it off the waistline. So instead of 10.5 of my crotch length, it will now reduce to 9 inches. So I've marked it out here. Then the length of my trouser is 40.5. So I've also marked it out here, and I've added 2 inches for my hemming allowance. So this brings it down to 42.5. My hip measurement is 44, so I'm going to divide 44 by 4, and this gives me 11 inches. Measure 1/2 inch seam allowance for my hip line. If you're comfortable using 1 inch, you can use that, but I prefer using 1/2 inch so that it doesn't make my pants very bulgy or looking funny. So I've marked out my 1/2 inch that I would like to use for my seam allowance. Then I'll measure my hip. My hip circumference is 44. I'll divide 44 by 4, and this gives me 11. So I'm going to mark my 11 inches here for my hip. For my crotch length, I'm going to add 2 inches to the 11 inches I've already marked. So from this point where I measured my hip, I'm going to mark the same 11 inches, leaving out my 1/2 inch. I'm going to mark the same 11 inches on the waistline. Okay, so now I've marked my 11 inches. Then I'll come in by 1/2 inch, since I don't want my trouser looking funny there. Then I'll join these lines. Next thing, I'll measure 1/4 of my waist circumference. So my waist circumference is 37. If I divide 37 by 4, it will give me 9.25. So I will mark my 9.25 here. If you would like to have a dart on your front panel, you just go ahead and add 1 inch for your dart. But I don't want to add a dart on my pants, so I will leave that out. I'll just add my 1/2 inch for my seam allowance. So to measure my knee length, I will just measure my length from my crotch length to the full length of my pant, which is 30 inches. I'll divide this by 2 and I'll get 15. But 15 is not my knee length. I'm going to come up by 2 inches, which is 13. So this will be the point for my knee length. I'll just draw a straight line to mark my knee length. So to determine where to place my knee measurement, I'm going to measure from my crotch length, which is now 13 inches. I'll measure it and derive the half of it. So half of 13 inches is 6.5. So this is the middle of my pant. I also come in by 1/2 inch here and 1/2 inch here. So I'll mark the half of 13 inches, which is 6.5. I'll mark it on my knee length. Then I'll also mark it down on the full length of my pants. So I've marked half of it. Now to get my knee length, my knee measurement is 18 inches. So I'll mark half of 18 inches here. So half of 18 is 9 inches. So I'll mark my 9 inches here, placing 4.5 to the right and 4.5 to the left. So this is my 9 inches. The circumference of my ankle is 14 inches. So I'll mark half of 14 inches on my ankle. So half of 14 is 7 inches. I'll mark 3.5 to the right and 3.5 to the left. So this is a total of 7 inches. I have not added any allowance to my ankle and my knee length because all the allowance will be added to my back pattern. Next, I will use my French curve to connect these lines. So I've connected this line. Next, I'll also extend this line from my crotch length to my knee length. So I'm using my French curve as well to connect this. Then from my knee length to my ankle, I will use my ruler to connect that. I'll also connect it from the other side. I'll also draw a straight line from my ankle to the hemming allowance. So I'll need ½ inch to attach my waistband. So I'll just extend my waistline by ½ inch. In order to have a balance on my abdomen area, I'll just come down from my waistline, from my initial waistline. I'll come down by ½ inch just to have a balance on my abdomen area. This is for the front piece. So I'll just connect this line to my waistline. So what this implies is that I've come down by 1 inch from my seam allowance. Now I'm going to measure my pockets. To get my pocket, I'll just go in from this point. I'll go in by 3 inches. Then on the length, I'll come down by 6 inches and mark it. So this is where my pocket will be. I'll just draw a straight line to connect these lines. So I'll just cut this out. I will not cut out this point until I cut out my back panel. So I'll just cut the front piece first. From the piece of fabric I cut out from my crotch area, I'll just measure 2 inches, and this will be used for my pants flap where I'll be fixing my zip. So and this is it for the front panel of my pants. Now I'm going to cut out my back pattern. To cut my back pattern, I'll just place this on another folded piece of fabric. So I have placed my front pattern on another folded piece of fabric to get my back pattern. So to get this back pattern, first I will need to extend my crotch area. I'll extend it by 3 inches. This is to have a balance in this flap. Okay, so after adding these 3 inches to the crotch, I'll have to extend my lines from my waistline. So from this crotch line, I will extend it to meet the 3 inches I've already added. I'll also extend the line on my knee length as well, because I'll be adding my 2 inches seam allowance all through. Remember, on the knee and on the ankle, we did not add any seam allowance on the front pattern, so we're going to add all the 2 inches allowance on the back pattern. So I'll extend this line as well. So I've also added 1.5 inch to my waistline for my back rise at the back of the trouser. So I've extended it by 1.5 inches. So I'll join this line. Now I'll extend my knee length as well by 2 inches. Then I'll also extend this part by 2 inches. I'll connect this from my 3 inches to join with the 2 inches I added on my knee length. Then with my ruler, I'll also extend the line from my knee length to the ankle. Then I'll also extend my hemming allowance to meet up with the 2 inches I already added on the front panel. I'll also join this line. From my waistline, I'm going to add 2 inches as well to the waistline for my back pattern. So I've added 2 inches to this point and 2 inches. But as I'm approaching the midpoint, I will add 1.5 instead of 2 inches. This is because I want my pant to fit perfectly. I wouldn't want it bulgy at this side. But if you don't mind, you can as well leave your style way, but it's always advisable to take it in, as I would like my flap to fit perfectly. So I've taken out 1.5 inch. Now I'll use my French curve to connect these lines to my crotch extension. So I'll draw a line to connect this rise on the back of my pant to the front line that I already have on my front pattern. So I'll just draw this line and connect to this point. For my back pattern, from my waistline, I'm going to add that allowance of 1 inch. Even though I've not added that allowance to the front panel, as I don't want that in front, I'll just add it to the back one. I'll now join my line. So I'll cut out my back pattern. Remember, I came down by 1 inch on my front pattern. So now I'll just cut it out, since I've used it as a template to cut my back pattern. So this is what my pants will look like. So I can also go ahead and cut my pocket. But before I do this, I will trace out the pocket bag that will be in the pant. I'll just mark from the point where the dart will be. I'll just mark it down to the crotch length and cut it out. I'll also trace out this line. The line I had marked earlier for my pocket, I'll trace it out like this. I'll use my ruler to trace it out so that I'll have it straight. Then the next thing I'll do is to place this on another piece of fabric. Next, I will insert my dart on the back pattern. So I'll derive the midpoint from this waistline. I'll derive the midpoint. So I'll mark it here, which is 6 inches. Then from this point, I'll add ½ inch to the right and ½ inch to the left on the mark I previously made. Then I'll mark the depth of 5.5 inch for my dart length. So that's how deep my dart will be at the back panel. Now I'll connect the line from the first point I've marked. Then I'll also connect the other 2 lines I marked at the 2 parts, at the 2 sides of my dart. So this will be for my dart.